I was leaning against the sunlit windowsill of my downtown apartment, the city buzzing beneath me, when my phone buzzed again. Another text from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. "Happy birthday, rent's due. Don't forget." I stared at the words, my fingers tightening around the rim of my coffee mug. 19 years old, and my stepmom had tried to charge me rent on my birthday. I had remembered that day vividly. The ache in my chest, the disbelief, the bitter taste of being treated like an outsider in my own home. Now, at 28, I was living in a space I'd earned entirely on my own. The soft silk of my blouse felt like armor as I ran my hand across my desk, where neat stacks of contracts and a glowing laptop testified to the life I had quietly built. No one in my family knew the full extent of it. Not her, not my father, not anyone. I liked it that way. There was a strange satisfaction in keeping the truth to myself, letting it simmer silently until the right moment. I thought about that night, how her face had twisted in expectation, how she thought she had power over me. And now, here she was again, reaching out with that same entitlement, as if nothing had changed. I took a slow sip of coffee, the warmth grounding me, and let myself smile, not bitterly, but knowingly. This time, the roles had shifted, and the thought of saying the one line that would make her face change, just like it had in my memory, sent a quiet thrill through me. 19. I remember waking up that morning with a mix of excitement and nervous anticipation. My birthday had always been a big deal to me, a day to celebrate life, family, and small victories. But that year, the energy in the house was off. My stepmom, Karen, had been unusually chilly all morning, her smile tight and calculated. I thought maybe I was overreacting, but a knot had already formed in my stomach. When I walked into the kitchen, she was there with a stack of papers and a smirk that didn't reach her eyes. "Since you're technically living here, you should know your rent's due. And I expect it by the end of a week." She waved the papers at me like they were a crown of power. My fork hovered in midair, breakfast forgotten. "Wait, what?" I asked, my voice trembling. "It's my birthday. And you're charging me rent." Her laughter was sharp, a sound that cut deeper than any words she could have said. "Rules are rules, honey. You live here, you pay." My chest tightened, tears stinging the edges of my eyes. The lump in my throat was so big, I could barely swallow. I felt smaller than I had ever felt, and yet an unfamiliar spark of defiance ignited somewhere deep inside me. My grandmother's words came to mind, whispered to me years before, almost like a mantra. "Never let anyone define your worth. Your future is yours to claim, not theirs to dictate." I reached for that advice like a lifeline, letting it anchor me. The house felt impossibly large, the walls closing in with expectation and judgment. My hands shook, and I realized something crucial. I couldn't stay here, not in this environment where my autonomy was mocked and my value reduced to dollar signs. That afternoon, I packed a small bag with essentials, slipping in the little leather-bound journal my grandmother had given me. Its pages were a promise, a reminder that my life was mine to write. I left a note on my bedroom door. "I love you, Dad. I need to find my own way." With one last look at the house that had felt like a cage, I stepped out. The sunlight hit my face, warm and forgiving, and for the first time that day, I felt the stirrings of freedom, of possibility. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew, without a doubt, that I was going. Leaving that house had felt like stepping into a void, but also into possibility. I moved into a small studio apartment on the edge of the city, furnished mostly with thrifted pieces and a sense of determination that no rent demand or dismissive glance could ever shake. My grandmother's leather-bound journal rested on the nightstand, its worn pages filled with her gentle reminders. "Keep your eyes on your own path. Your worth is not their measure." Every night, I wrote in it, letting my frustrations, my fears, and my dreams spill onto the page. I found work at a local marketing firm, starting at the bottom with endless hours of administrative tasks, making coffee runs and proofreading client presentations. Some days, exhaustion threatened to swallow me whole. My hands cramped from typing late into the night, My eyes burned from staring at spreadsheets that never seemed to end. Doubt was a constant companion. Maybe I'm not cut out for this, I whispered to myself more times than I could count. But I remember my grandmother's words, and I kept moving. It was there I met Mara, a seasoned strategist who had a sharp mind and an even sharper intuition. She noticed my potential long before anyone else did. "You have an eye for detail, and you think beyond the obvious," she said one evening, pulling me aside after a grueling client meeting. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Her belief in me became the catalyst for the next phase of my life. Under her guidance, I learned how to pitch ideas, negotiate contracts, and navigate the subtle politics of the corporate world. I began taking on small freelance projects on the side, designing campaigns, managing social media accounts, even pitching proposals to local businesses. Every small victory felt monumental. My first client who paid me directly for my creative input. The first profitable side project that left me with more than just pennies. The first time I deposited a check into my own account and realized, with a thrill I could hardly contain, that this was truly mine. Slowly, methodically, I built a life separate from my past, one where my stepmother's rules, her derision, and her sense of entitlement no longer had any foothold. I kept this life secret. My social media posts were carefully curated, smiling selfies, coffee cups, sunsets, but no one could see the late nights hunched over laptops, the rejection emails, the phone calls where I had to assert myself for the first time. The real me, the version of me that had clawed her way out of fear and doubt, remained hidden. There was a quiet satisfaction in that anonymity, in watching my success grow like a garden no one else had the keys to. By the time I turned 24, I was financially independent, living in a space I could finally call mine, and building a reputation in the marketing world for creativity and professionalism. Every step, every sleepless night, every ounce of determination had brought me here, not just to survive, but to thrive. And somewhere deep inside, I knew that one day I would face those who doubted me, and this time, the story would be mine to tell. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when I finally saw her again. Karen, my stepmother, standing in my doorway as if she still had any right to dictate terms in my life. I hadn't sent her an invitation. She must have tracked my new address through some old, careless connection. Her eyes scanned my apartment, the faint curl of her lips trying to mask surprise. But I could see it, just beneath her practiced smile, the flicker of uncertainty. "You look different," she said, stepping inside, her heels clicking nervously against the polished hardwood floor. The apartment was tastefully minimal, yet every object had meaning. The large abstract painting on the wall had been a purchase from my first freelance paycheck. The leather-bound journals stacked neatly beside the couch were the ones my grandmother had gifted me. Even the sleek coffee table, adorned with a vase of fresh flowers, symbolized a life carefully curated by my own hands. I poured tea for both of us, letting the warm scent fill the room. She shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the city's skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows, her posture stiff with expectation. I let a few moments pass, savoring the pause, letting her eyes take in everything silently. Then, finally, I spoke. "You must have been expecting someone else," I said, my voice calm, almost gentle. "Someone still struggling, still dependent, still renting from you." Her smile faltered, and I watched as recognition and panic rippled across her face. I don't understand," she stammered. I gestured toward my office corner, sleek and professional. "I run my own marketing firm. I've been in business for 4 years. I have multiple clients, contracts, and investments. This apartment? I bought it. Every penny earned on my own." I let the words hang in the air, watching as her carefully constructed confidence crumbled. She blinked, searching for a response, but none came. She could feel it, the power shift, the reversal of roles she had assumed were permanent. I leaned back slightly, letting her take in the expensive yet intimate space that bore the imprint of my journey. "You tried to charge me rent when I was 19, I continued. "You thought I was nothing. But I didn't just survive. I thrived." Her lips parted, but no words emerged. The arrogance that had once filled the room like a heavy fog was gone, replaced by disbelief, shame, and something closer to awe. I saw it in her eyes, the realization that the girl she had dismissed was no longer hers to control. I allowed a quiet moment, sipping my tea, letting the magnitude of my independence sink in. This wasn't just about money or a place to live. It was about recognition, respect, and finally claiming the narrative that had once been stolen from me. Her silence was complete, her face a canvas of emotions, shock, regret, amazement. And for the first time in years, I felt the sweet, almost vindicating thrill of being entirely untouchable. Then I smiled, not cruelly, but assuredly. I think it's time we both understand who's in charge now. Karen finally spoke, her voice trembling. I didn't know. I let her words hang, not rushing to fill the silence. The truth was, I wasn't here to console her. I was here to set boundaries, to ensure that the past would never repeat itself. This wasn't revenge, it was accountability. And I had every right to define the terms. You didn't know because you never paid attention, I said softly, my tone steady but firm. You tried to make me feel small, like my existence was negotiable. But I'm done letting others dictate my worth. If you want a place in my life now, there are conditions. Her eyes widened, caught between fear and curiosity. I leaned forward, letting my words land with clarity. First, respect. Not just words, Karen, actions. That means acknowledging me as an equal, not someone under your thumb. She nodded quickly, almost too eagerly. I continued. Second, honesty. No more manipulation, no more games. I want transparency, starting with how you treat everyone in your life, not just me. I took a deep breath, letting the rhythm of the city outside my window remind me that this was my domain now. Third, growth. You will seek help for the toxic behaviors you've relied on for control. Anger, entitlement, fear of losing power, they all need to be addressed. I can't be responsible for your personal transformation, but I will respect your effort if it's genuine. Her shoulders slumped slightly, the realization of the work she had to do pressing down on her. And fourth, she asked, almost reluctantly. I smiled, the warmth of confidence radiating through me. Fourth, boundaries. I will always care about my family, but I will not tolerate disrespect, belittling, or attempts to control me. You respect my space, my time, and my achievements, or you step aside. That's non-negotiable. I could see her processing the shift. The woman who had once tried to charge me rent as a teenager was now confronted with a version of me who needed nothing from her but respect. The balance of power had changed. There was a subtle humility in her expression now, mixed with a spark of hope. I think I understand, she murmured. Good, I said, letting a sense of calm authority settle over us. This isn't about punishing you. It's about creating a relationship built on accountability, respect, and mutual growth. Do these conditions feel achievable? Her eyes flicked down briefly, then back to mine. Yes, I can do that. I'll try. I nodded, letting the words resonate. The room felt lighter now, infused with potential. It wasn't perfect yet. Nothing worth building ever was, but the foundation was laid. I had claimed my power, and in doing so, I had carved out space for both of us to heal, if she chose to honor it. For the first time in years, I felt entirely in control, not just of my environment, but of my story, my life, and my future. And I knew, without a doubt, that this was only the beginning. Months passed, and the change in Karen was gradual but undeniable. She started attending therapy sessions, learning to recognize the entitlement and control that had dominated her relationships. I saw glimpses of humility and genuine effort in her gestures, a thoughtful message, a small acknowledgement of my achievements, a willingness to listen rather than dictate. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. I also reflected on my own journey, on the girl who had left home with a small bag and a journal, unsure of what lay ahead. Every late night, every struggle, every moment of doubt had led me here, to a life I had earned, to confidence I had fought for, to freedom that was fully mine. I smiled at the thought, brushing my fingers over the worn leather of my grandmother's journal. Her words had guided me through the storm. Never let anyone define your worth. Your future is yours to claim. They had never rung truer. My apartment, once just a functional space to survive in, had transformed into a home that reflected who I had become. The art on the walls, the books stacked neatly on shelves, the smell of fresh coffee brewing in the morning, all of it told a story of resilience, independence, and personal triumph. It was mine, fully and unapologetically. And as I looked back at the past, the bitter birthday, the unfair demands, the sting of rejection, I realized how every moment had shaped me into a woman who could face her past, confront it, and rise above it. I didn't need revenge. I needed recognition, and more importantly, I had given myself that first. One afternoon, as Karen quietly left after a visit, no demands, no awkward tension, I stood by the window, sunlight spilling across my desk. I held my grandmother's journal to my chest and whispered, almost to myself, I am enough. I always was, and now the world knows it too. In that moment, I felt the culmination of every struggle, every triumph, every tear shed in secret. I had claimed my story, my power, and my life, and nothing could take it away. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled not just at what I had become, but at the woman I had always been meant to be.